What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, and today we're going to be taking a look at the film on New York Giants former top 10 pick, Evan Neal. Now, Evan Neal started his career at right tackle, but has been making that transition to right guard this summer. And we're going to look at his preseason week 3 game against the New England Patriots and try and see what we can take away because there was some good, but there was also a lot of bad and some ugly as well. So we're going to try and break it all down and see if Evan Neal, whether or not he is a lost cause or if there's hope for him to eventually turn into a starter for the New York Giants. So that's what we're going to break down. So we're going to look at this first play of the game for the Giants offense, and they're running out of the I formation with that fullback slash defensive tackle Elijah Chapman in the backfield. And what you're going to see here is a misdirection counter handoff to the running back Cam Scatterbo. That's meant to go up through this A gap where Evan Neal is blocking. But there's a couple things that I want to take a look at. This play ultimately doesn't go for a gain of much here. Scatterbo tries to bounce it outside, and he does a great job finding another hole to get through. As you can see, Marcus Bowe has done a great job walling off his guy. And so there is a lane. Scatterbo slips and he doesn't get through it. But why wasn't he able to go through this intended A gap? Well, not to the fault of the fullback, who actually does do his lead blocking job quite well and engage with his blocker there. But this actually is on the fault of Evan Neal. He's going to combo block this nose tackle, running a duo here basically with the center. So instead of immediately going to the next level, he's going to block on this nose tackle. But really, he should have helped on the nose tackle, then gotten to the next level. This is his man assignment here in this run blocking scheme. And then this linebacker is to be taken by the fullback, and that should leave this box safety one-on-one with Cam Scatterbo. So I'll roll it through and take a look. So he does a good job of creating space and moving that nose tackle off the ball. But then he doesn't get to that second level. As you can see, he recognizes that he was supposed to. He flails his arm out and turns around and realizes, oh, crap, I missed my block. I didn't get to the second level. And now that linebacker is in the hole, forcing Cam Scatterbo to bounce outside and unfortunately be tackled for a gain of about none. But I do also want to highlight a great job here from Stone Forsythe to turn his body, wall off his defender. Same thing with Marcus Bowe. Tackles did a great job on this play. This should have been a gain of quite a bit here through the A gap, but unfortunately, Evan Neal not able to get to the second level does wind up resulting in a gain of a minimal. So this is the next play here, and it's actually going to be a pretty solid pass blocking rep from Evan Neal. Giants in a 5-wide empty backfield shotgun set here. Ball is snapped to Jackson Dart. And if you see here, I do like Evan Neal's base. I think he's got a solid base, and he does engage with the defensive lineman first. Now, you can see he's got one hand on the outside shoulder, but that's fine because this inside hand is strapped to the defensive lineman's chest. He grabs a hold, as you can see, with that hand right there on the center of his chest. He's got good leverage. His pad height is lower than the defenders, as you can see, and that allows him to hold up here. A lot of hand fighting going on. The defender tries to get in the passing lane at the start here, but then tries to swim and get around Evan Neal. But Evan Neal does a good job anchoring and holding him and pushing him past the pile here, runs out of room and runs into his right tackle. But this is good pass protection rep that gave Jackson Dart space to step up into and deliver a throw. This ended up being a 60-yard gain to Gunnar Olszewski. So I think we do see some good from Evan Neal on this one with his hand placement. I think his feet look a lot better. I don't think they look perfect. I mean, he's a little flat-footed at times, and if you compare him to Marcus Bowe, you'll see that Bowe's feet are better, sure, but this is a good rep from Evan Neal, firing out of his stance and getting his hands on that defensive lineman and winning the hand fighting rep here for some good pass protection. All right, and this next rep is going to be another ugly one for Evan Neal. He's lined up, of course, at right guard, and he's got this two-eye tech right in his face who's going to be pass rushing him here through the A gap. Let's take a look and see what went wrong for Evan Neal. So ball is snapped, and let's see, Evan Neal fires out of his stance, but let's take a look at his pad height here and see just how high up he gets. If you see, he doesn't have a ton of balance there because he's lunging forward early. His weight is shifted past his toes. He's doesn't have that right foot down and grounded. He's not able to gain his balance as a result. And so once you're lunging like this, especially with your pad height being so high, you lose your leverage. His pad height is higher than the defensive lineman's. And as a result, he's going to be vulnerable to this inside move that the defensive lineman is going to take. And that's going to result in a quarterback hit, nailing Jackson Dart as he tries to fire this deep pass. So now you see as that defensive lineman gets through here, once again, let's fire it through quickly. Fires up yes, he's chopping his feet. I like that. But then he misfires here, lunges. Pad height is way too high, doesn't have any leverage, and now he's riding the defensive lineman's hip. Rather than trying to get back and beat him to a spot, he's just riding his hip and trying to push him off the spot. And that's the worst place you want to be as an offensive lineman. This was something that really harmed Evan Neal's ability to perform at tackle. He wasn't able to beat edge rushers to the spot. It's showing up again here against a 2-eye, an interior defensive lineman who gets by him, riding his hip, and unfortunately surrendering a quarterback hit on Jackson Dart, who throws a dime that's ultimately dropped, but really good throw. And yeah, so that's what you see from Evan Neal, just pad height too high, not gaining leverage, and lunging, putting too much of his weight forward and not gaining a solid base to balance himself with in pass protection. And like I said, giving up a quarterback hit here. Also, shout out to Nick Filato for posting this cut up of all of Evan Neal's reps on Twitter. Thank you for posting this. So on this next rep, again, Evan Neal lined up right here. This is not going to be a great rep. This is going to be another run blocking rep. Giants running an inside zone handoff here. They're going to try and duo block this nose tackle duo here, and then it's going to be on the responsibility of Neal once again to get to that second level and take away this linebacker. Let's see if he's able to do that as the Giants hand off to Cam Skattebo. So he does get to that linebacker, and right here, this looks great. I mean, if this held together as is, you would have a nice hole here for Skattebo to get through. If Evan Neal holds his block, if Stone Forsythe were to hold his block, and Schlottman's doing a great job. Bo is walled off that defender. He's doing a great job as usual. And I'm not familiar. I think that's Stinney right here getting to his linebacker as well, second level block. But let's see what Evan Neal does. First and foremost, I do like the help that he provides right here to the right tackle, getting his hand on that defensive lineman, just adding a little bit of leverage for his right tackle. As he gets to the second level, though, one thing that you'll notice immediately is he's late to engage. Look whose hands are on who first. The linebacker quickly gets his hands on Evan Neal. And now, as we always say with these offensive line breakdowns, once you grab a hold of their chest, you have control of them. So the linebacker now has control, and it's up to Evan Neal to try to regain control. But as you can see, his hands are a little bit wide from his shoulders. He doesn't have that compact punch in him right now. He's got wide hands. Somebody's already got a hold of his chest. Is he able to recover? Well, unfortunately not, because the linebacker has a hold of his chest. Look at how the linebacker is able to stand firm, pull Evan Neal's chest, and pull him out of the way, and then help make this tackle. So not the best rep here from Evan Neal. It's an even worse rep from Stone Forsythe. Stone Forsythe has a similar issue on this one. He also is late to engage, as you saw right there. That defensive lineman engaged with him first, has a hold of his chest, and he is also going to just rip him and make this tackle for a gain of none or a short gain. But basically, you're seeing the same flaw from both of these guys. But right there, I think this screen grab is a perfect example. Evan Neal's hand still down at his waist. Linebacker has complete control of his chest, and that's how he's able to move him out of the way and get in the rushing lane. So not the best rep there for Evan Neal, and definitely not the best rep for Stone Forsythe. Next clip is another really good rep here from Evan Neal, actually in pass protection. One thing you're going to notice right as I start this clip, fires out of his stance really quickly. As soon as that ball is snapped, look at how quickly he got out of his stance. I think he beat every other offensive lineman. Yeah, him and Stone Forsythe are the first ones out, and he's right away in his stance for pass protection. Still think his base is a little too wide. Would like to see him kind of keep those legs, those feet shoulder width apart and get them a little bit closer together. But that's fine, because if you notice here, he actually does engage with the defensive lineman first. Look, he's got that right arm or that right hand on the chest of the defensive lineman, who now is just going to be fighting for his life, trying to disengage with Evan Neal. But one thing that we can't say about Evan Neal is that he's weak, right? He is a strong guy. He is a big, massive a human being. And when he does get his hands on you, sometimes he can do good with that. But right now, getting the hands on these defenders has been the problem. But on this clip, on this rep here, we're seeing him fire out of his stance quickly and then immediately engage with this defensive lineman. As you see, there's a little bit of hand fighting here, and this is really crucial. Can he smack that hand away and get the other hand, get that hand on the defensive lineman to grip him? Pause. Yes, he does exactly that. So as you see, that right hand is on that inside chest of the defender, and that allows him to gain control here and hold his ground. As you see, and now he's going to use that other hand to just hold him in place and move him. So this is a really good pass blocking rep from Evan Neal, and it allows Jackson Dart to throw what is an absolute dime to Jalen Hyatt. That is, of course, dropped. If you guys want the breakdown on Jalen Hyatt. We did that on the channel, so go back and watch that film breakdown as well. But this was a really good rep from Evan Neal here. This one's going to be another rough rep for Evan Neal. One trend that I'm noticing is a lot of these good reps are coming out of the shotgun. A lot of these tough reps are coming out of the I formation. When Evan Neal is in a three-point stance right now, he seems to be struggling. I think that's part of making the transition from tackle to guard, where, of course, at the tackle, you're in that upright position. But when you're down in that narrow area as a guard and you've got your hand on the ground a little bit more often and those defensive linemen are closer to you, I think that's where Evan Neal is running into some of his problems at guard. But let's roll this clip and see what happened. Giants are going to run a play action passing play here. Evan Neal's going to get beat and Jackson Dart's going to get sacked. It's not Evan Neal's guy who gets the sack, but it is Evan Neal's guy who gets the initial pressure. Let's see what happened. So ball is snapped. He does fire out of his stance pretty quickly here. Once again, that base is really wide. And once again, those hands are late. Those hands should be going up right now at this point in the rep, but they are not. And look whose hands are going up, the defensive linemen's. So who's going to gain control? Obviously, the defensive lineman. It's really just a race to see who can get whose hands on who first with this battle here that we're seeing between Evan Neal and these defensive linemen. Late hands by his hips the whole time. And then, look, he's got his hands going up, but they're going up wide. His chest is exposed, and his chest is being grabbed by this defensive lineman who gets a hold and then just hits him with a rip move to get around him. And now, once again, Evan Neal is just riding his hip. It's a great job by Jackson Dart to sense that pressure, step up and avoid it, step up into a new clean pocket, but unfortunately doesn't have an open man to throw to. Stone Forsythe not able to make his block, and we've got a free rusher here from the inside linebacker on the blitz after a chip block from Dante Turbo Miller. He's going to go ahead and get the sack. So really, this could have been a cleaner pocket. I think Jackson Dart makes a clean pocket for himself, but once again, you're seeing Evan Neal does a good job firing out of his stance. I'm really impressed with that. That's something that I thought he didn't do too well at right tackle. He seems to be getting out of his stance quickly. He seems to be getting his hands up late and hands up too wide, as well as you see on this paused screen grab right here. That's allowing these defensive linemen to get a hold of him and hit him with these rip moves, these swim moves, and all of these other moves that are allowing them to get by him. So that's what went wrong on that rep, and unfortunately, you saw Evan Neal lose that one. But this next rep, you see Evan Neal win in pretty commanding fashion. This is a really good rep here. So let's roll this one through. Ball is snapped. Again, Evan Neal fires out of his stance, and he encroaches toward the defensive lineman, gets out of his stance, and makes him move up. So this way he can get his hands on sooner. That works. So this was a good rep for Neal because I think he's recognizing my hands aren't getting on these defensive linemen soon enough. I'm not engaging quickly and early enough in the rep. Let me get out of my stance and get forward, not lunge forward, but use my feet to gain forward and then get my hands on this guy. That's the big difference here. A lot of the times you'll see Evan Neal lunge, put all of his weight forward and lose his balance by putting all of his weight up ahead of his toes. But on this rep, instead of doing that, instead of lunging, he creeps forward with quick, choppy feet and then engages the defensive lineman here. So look at him creep forward, and now, boom, hands up. He's got his hands on the chest of the defensive lineman. He is now in control. The defensive lineman is trying to put a move on him, but Neal has a hold of him, gets his hands swatted away, but immediately recovers and gets his hands right back on the chest. This is a really good battle here that Neal was able to win. I mean, hands swiped. He keeps recovering. This is a great rep, and this is why you can see the translation from him going from tackle to guard, where there is potential for that to pay off, because this is a rep that probably doesn't work out for him at tackle, but he's able to get out of his stance in a quick fashion, get his hands on this guy, and because he's not trying to beat a guy to a spot on the edge, it's a one-on-one blocking opportunity here. All of this hand fighting, Evan Neal now has an advantage with his mass, with his strength, and because he got his hands on the defensive lineman first on this rep. So now they're fighting. His hands are getting swiped, but he's able to quickly recover because he doesn't have to move laterally while this guy rushes around the edge. So that's why this move to guard does make sense. You're seeing it show up on this rep because this is a very good rep where he wins a hand battle and he anchors really nicely to keep that pocket from collapsing too quickly. Eventually, the bull rush gets him, sure, but this is later in the rep, and Jackson Dart is not flushing out of the pocket here because of Evan Neal. He's flushing out of the pocket here because of a collapse on the left side of the line. Evan Neal is honestly probably doing the best out of anybody on this rep here. As you can see, he's got the most ground gained there. So that was a good rep from Evan Neal. And once again, those are the reps that make you say, hey, maybe he can be a decent. Now I'm going to quickly highlight two clips. I'm not going to fully break them down because there isn't a ton. They're quick passes, but I just want to highlight here. Early on in this film, we saw Evan Neal maybe not getting his feet firing quickly enough. And then we've seen a real change where his feet are now firing really quickly and he is getting in front of the defensive lineman as a result. So I just want to highlight this as Evan Neal is still learning this position. He is still adapting, and you're actually seeing on this film him learning in real time, going from slow feet at the beginning of the film to now watching this clip really quickly firing out of stance, really choppy feet, allowing himself to stay in front of that defensive lineman. And then on the next rep, again, firing out of a stance, really choppy feet, and able to engage on this defensive lineman and put together another really good pass blocking rep. So again, not a ton to break down on those two clips. They're quick drop back, snap, and throws. But just noticing he's learning in real time. We're seeing it on this film. His feet are improving as this game goes on, as he goes through each pass blocking rep, because every rep for him is a new learning experience. So I just thought that was interesting and important to highlight. Neal's trying. He's trying his best. I got to give credit to Evan Neal. He is trying. He's putting his best effort in. And I think we're seeing him making progress throughout this game. And hopefully that does carry into the regular season as he hopefully goes from backup to maybe eventually one day becoming a starter. So generally speaking, I think these plays that we broke down do a good job of demonstrating where Evan Neal is making progress, where he's gone right, and where he's gone wrong. But I do think we are seeing some level of progress from Evan Neal. It's not pretty. He's got mistakes that he still needs to work out and improve on. Definitely still has flaws in his game. He's a work in progress, though, and I do think we are seeing progress for him at guard. Definitely some improvements in his game. So, guys, let me know what you saw on this film, what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, and who you want me to break down next. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Giants. Let's go, New York Giants.